Okay, folks, we're now entering Module 3 of our class, and this is a module in which we're going to focus on reading 3 or 4 or more of the significant Supreme Court cases of the last 20 years or so. And in order to read those cases and understand what they say, we have to first know how to read an opinion. It sounds like it should be pretty simple, but as you've seen probably already, these opinions are written in a very kind of stylistic way that can be confusing to read at first. So this is a page, this is an opinion from the case Miranda v. Arizona, which you may know because if you watch any kind of TV procedurals, you've seen police officers read the Miranda rights to criminals, right? And they say you have the right to remain silent. Those are your Miranda rights, and in fact, police carry a little card that helps them to remember to read those rights to people who are detained. Those rights come from a case called Miranda v. Arizona. And if you look at this opinion, you notice first up here, October term 1965. 65 is when the case was argued, or when this decision was argued. Down here you see that it was decided in 66. 384 U.S. That is a reference to the volume of the United States opinions, the U.S. recorder. It's a volume of Supreme Court opinions. There are ones for the various circuit courts. There are ones for trial courts. There are all kinds of big binders full of opinions. But when they're Supreme Court opinions, they bear the designation U.S. 384 is the volume of these reports in which this opinion is contained. Over here, 436, that's the page on which the opinion starts. If you were to cite this case in a filing, in a brief or a filing, you cite it as Miranda v. Arizona, 384 U.S. 436, 1966. That's how you cite the case. That's how someone reading your brief knows where to go to find it. This image is kind of the kind of the way it would appear in the recorder. If we were to go over here, we can look at a bit of a cleaner image, right? It's simpler, but again, 384 U.S. 436, 1966. That's how you cite this case right here. Then this version jumps right into the opinion. It says Chief Justice Warren, that's Earl Warren, delivered the opinion of the court, and we go into the reasoning. If we look back at the other one, we're going to get these head notes, and these head notes are actually a really, really useful thing because they tell you in a very brief format what the holding of the case is, that is, what the ruling of the case is. So it kind of gives you almost like a Cliff Notes or kind of a cheat sheet for what the case is about. And it says held. That's the most important word in the whole case, is this one right here, held, because that tells you what the holding is, what the case stands for, right? But in this case, you'll get several pages of these little head notes, and you can read through them and try to figure out what's important. And then you get to the appearances of counsel, right? John J. Flynn argued the cause for petitioner. That's the person who petitioned the Supreme Court to hear the case. And you get with him on brief, or John P. Frank, blah, blah, blah. I got to tell you, as a lawyer, you really, really look forward to the times when you can appear either before the court or at least on a brief filed before the court. So this stuff matters to these lawyers. They'll be kind of using it on their business cards to say, yep, check out this case, I appear there. And then Gary Nelson argued the case on behalf of Arizona. He's the Assistant Attorney General for Arizona. He argued the case, and with him on the brief were all the other guys, right? And then this guy, by special leave of court, he kind of comes in. Remember, we talked about the amicus people, the people who file friend of the court briefs. So Telford Taylor, by special leave, came in and he argued the case for New York as an amicus, and all these guys are with him, and they're from all over. You'll notice that they're not just from New York; they're from Alabama, Arizona, everywhere else. But in this case, you get through all this final stuff, and then finally, down here we are now on page 439. We spent 3+ pages going through the stuff, and now finally we're at the same place where this court is. Now I'm going to stick with this one. What you'll have in these opinions is you'll have a long discussion first of how the case got to the court, what the underlying facts are, what the issues are, and oftentimes they'll have Roman numerals. Let's say the constitutional issue that we decide in each of these cases is the admissibility of statements obtained from a defendant questioned while in custody or otherwise deprived of his freedom in any significant way. That is the question that the court is going to answer, right? Then the court kind of goes through the facts and what happened in the case and what happened in the lower courts. And then they get into the argument and their reasoning, right? We sometimes forget how long it has taken to establish the privilege against self-incrimination, the sources from which it came, and it's kind of going to go through all these things. And then in Section 3, it says, today, there can be no doubt that the Fifth Amendment privilege is available outside of the criminal court proceedings and serves to protect persons in all settings in which their freedom of action is curtailed in any significant way. So what you're doing when you're reading these things is you're kind of looking for keywords to figure out what the case is about. A lot of the stuff in the case is important, but a lot of it's what's called dicta, and dicta is basically language in the opinion that isn't necessarily about the holding. It may be counter-arguments, whatever else. This is a critical word, hold, right? Accordingly, we hold that an individual held for interrogation must be clearly informed that he has the right to consult with a lawyer and have the lawyer with him during interrogation, right? If the individual indicates that he wishes the assistance, then the interrogation has to stop, right? And it kind of goes all through that. Those are key words. If you were writing a case brief, which is a very short, like a 2-page summary of this case, and they ask for what the holding is, that's where you find it. You find it in the language where the court says, we hold that when an individual is taken into custody or otherwise deprived of his freedom, the privilege against self-incrimination is jeopardized. Boom, that's the holding, right? Then they'll have these kind of other arguments that they address, but in this case, it's not a huge deal. Then we get down here, and this is a dissent, right? Justice Harlan, with whom Justice Stewart and Justice White join, dissenting. Now remember, a dissent is it doesn't carry weight on its own. It's not like a dissent is binding on lower courts. A dissent is a way for the judges to express, significant dissatisfaction with the majority's opinion, or to put forth the reasoning that they think should control. So here we get a dissent by this guy, written by this guy, but these two other guys join it, right? And so then the case goes through their reasoning, and we get to the end. In conclusion, nothing in the letter or spirit of the Constitution or in precedents squares with the heavy-handed and one-sided action that is so precipitously taken by the court in the name of fulfilling its constitutional responsibilities. So that's how it looks in this case. Here, it's a bit more. There are a lot more cites in the text. There are a lot more footnotes, and every one of these footnotes stands for a proposition that the court is citing, but obviously a much longer opinion, right? It goes on for pages and pages and pages with all these footnotes, which if you were going to cite this case in a brief that was important, you'd want to read all these footnotes. But it adds quite a bit of length. So that is the case of Miranda v. Arizona, and I hope that what you take from it is that a good case brief would reduce all this stuff. And here we're talking about, pages and pages and pages of stuff. We're already at 452, we're already 15 pages in or so, and it goes on for quite a bit more. You would want to be able to reduce this opinion to a 1 or 2 page, preferably one page summary that has the case citation on it, the year it was decided, what the issue was, what the rule the court applied to. In this case, it's the Fifth Amendment privilege against self-incrimination, what the analysis of the application of the rule to the facts, and then the conclusion or the holding. And that's how you brief a case.